A lot of people start doing one thing in real estate and then it comes down to hunting for your next deal every single time. Or are you going to buy an asset that can spin off almost passively and money that you're not having to chase?
If you're a residential real estate agent earning $200,000 a year and you want to grow your passive income, this show's for you. Learn the secrets other agents use and hear from experts in our field in order to guide you along your journey to investing in assets like apartment communities so that you can turn your commissions into cash flow. I'm Ryan McLeaird. Let's go, baby. All right. Welcome in. Today's guest is very special to me for multiple reasons. One, he's my brother. His name's Ryan McLeaird. And two, because he is a real estate agent actively investing in multiple asset classes, and he's doing a phenomenal job. His history is one that has always highlighted his ability to come into an organization and ramp up production or the volume of sales or anything, whatever product it is that he's working with. He's a former U.S. Navy veteran, and he's been active in real estate since 2010. So he's flipped a number of houses. We've done a few deals together in the past. Currently, we're working on a 14-unit infill townhouse development deal. In 2018, when he came out of the corporate world and started working with me, we ramped up our single family fix and flip and wholesale business from a number of deals to a 50 per year range. And so we were doing really well. And then when COVID hit in 2020, Ryan went off and he started working in the storage facility space. And so he's acquired some and he's been working on either wholesaling some or brokering those deals as well because he's an active agent. I'm really excited to have him on the show today. Obviously, I know his history very well, but I'm going to let him tell a little bit about it as well. And then we're going to get into what he's working on now and kind of how that pertains to you act as an agent looking to start investing into income producing properties and commercial real estate. So without further ado, let's bring on Ryan McLeaird. Welcome to the show. Why don't you go ahead and get started and tell us a little bit about your background? I said a little bit in the intro, but just wanted to have it come from you. You can touch on your military background, that sort of thing. I didn't really touch too heavy on that. And then where you are in the real estate space.
Well, now that goes a long way back if we're talking about the military, because it's been a minute already that I've been out. But we don't need to go back that far. I did get out of the military and went into mortgage brokerage shortly after that. So I kind of worked my way through college as a loan officer, and up until from about 2004 to 2008, I was, getting my undergrad degree after the military and working at night in like a boiler room setup, doing refinances. There were so many people that were like, I have a 12% interest rate. And we're like, oh, let me show you the power of 5%. And then, they would sign up and we would make lots of money. And so it was crazy times because anybody could get those deals. You know how it was. And
honestly, I forgot that you did that. When I said military, I wasn't even thinking it's not in your bio or anything like that. So to me, it didn't even, the fact that I did that too, I forget, so
yeah,
go ahead.
You left the country for a little while and then I kind of slid in and started doing the same stuff. And it was cool until it wasn't. We could see 2008 coming and that was nuts.
I think at the time, saved a lot of people a lot of money though by doing those refinances on their loans.
We did. Yeah. And then it started getting crazier toward the end. It was great up until the end. And then we were trying to push numbers and cycle numbers that we had done the year prior. And, so you're like trying to find any deal you can and, doing no doc loans. And we were doing what the underwriting said we could do and all these lenders giving us these guidelines. So we're like, yeah, totally doable. But looking back on it, we probably should have not done that. And so that came to fruition why we shouldn't have. And so that was a crazy time. I think now, a lot of people are worried, are we going to have another 2008 right now? And I just don't see it. The fundamentals in the market with how we've changed the loan process and the underwriting, and we're just not giving out deals like that anymore. So I don't see any major crash coming in that sense. But obviously we can still have a recession in other ways. So we can talk about that later. Yeah. And then I left in 2008 and got a corporate job because I thought this all is going to hell in a handbasket and I better have an actual job to fall back on. And so I worked in the corporate world from like 2008 to 2018 and worked my way up. And I was kind of like the guy I basically sold cigarettes for a big retail chain. It was like a Fortune 200 convenience store chain, one of the biggest in the world. And so I was in charge of all the tobacco sales across, over 1,000 stores was my responsibility. And so it was a lot of fun, got to travel, got to do a lot of cool things and learn a lot more about just marketing and retail category management and running my specific lane. And that was good. But then I did that for a long time and kept telling my boss, hey man, you got to change it up. I got to do something else. He kept saying, be patient, maybe another year, maybe, 2 years, you're a rising star in the company and all this stuff, but I don't have patience for that. And so 2018 came and I just kept being in this routine every single day. And I talked to a lot of other people that are still W-2. They tell me that now and they're ready to move out and do something else. And I tell them life on the outside is just fine. You're going to be okay. And so
I'll interject just personally, just seeing you make that transition out, that the freedom of time that you have now compared to what you had prior. You traveled, you got to go to the Masters, you got to do all these awesome events that you would go to. But it seems to me, just from the outside looking in, from kind of a close perspective, being your brother and all, but that you have more time. So, we'll touch on that a little bit, and you're making decent money as well. So
I've done the same, if not better, each of the last 4 years that I've been out, and that was good. Nothing fell off a cliff. But, when I left in 2018, I had some other plans and I was really looking for any excuse to get out. And so I found this excuse to get out, and it was another idea that didn't come to fruition, but I was working on it. And then one day I went to your office and man, what are you working on? What's going on here? And you're full-time real estate. What's going on? And you're like, I'm doing this thing called wholesaling. I'm like, I didn't even know you were doing that for a while, flipping houses and whatnot. I think that's where a lot of people start, when they start their real estate journey. And you can be a licensed real estate agent. You can straight into just flipping houses. You can do that on the side. You can buy rental properties. There's 800 different ways to make money in this business. And so that's the beauty of it. And so you started telling me what you're doing and you're like, hey, you want to sell a house? And I was like, yeah, let me try. He's like, so you gave me this crappy house near a lake and I'll never forget it. And you're just like, hey, see if you can sell this house this week. So I started hitting the phones, calling, got this lady. She bought it for $40,000. I think we had it under contract for 20. It's a $20,000 wholesale fee. And you're gave me a check for, I don't know, $6,000 or something. I was like, what am I doing over doing anything else? And so that was that really. And and that kicked it off. And I was like, let me come work for you. And there's a lot to learn. Luckily, being a loan officer for so many years and flipping some houses while I was, I had a corporate job, got my feet. I was better off than just coming in totally green. I knew, and I bought and sold many of my own houses, kind of live in rehabs and flip those. And so all that experience kind of culminated in kind of being ready for real estate in general. And so,
you had some background. I know you and I flipped a house, the dog house. I don't know. That was 2010, 2009. I don't even remember when that was, but that was
2009, 2010. Yeah.
And I remember thinking at the time, because I got my real estate license and I was going down that path. I'd worked at the title company at that time and was trying to get into the investing world. And I remember telling you, man, if we make $500 or 5,000, or I can't remember what the number was, but it was some nominal amount. I'm quitting everything. I'm doing this full time. I just remember that deal. So doing that with you gave me the confidence to get out and actually go and do it full time, just because buying the first deal is pretty daunting, no matter, what your background is. It's just, you think of, I had another agent on the other day and we're talking, he's like, his biggest fear was, you think of all the worst things that could possibly happen and it's unlikely that they will come to fruition, but that's where your head's at. And that's what you think all the time. And then you do one and you're like, oh, okay. And then you do 100. Okay, this is, and then all that stuff goes away, and then you end up buying a house sight unseen in 20 minutes of talking to a seller. So it's a long way to go, but that sort of thing happened. You and I were working together. One of the things that it's important to highlight, it's in your bio. You didn't say anything about it. I think I did. But you ramped up your cigarette sales, your category, quite significantly. And then when you came on and you and I were working together, it was I was doing some houses, doing some wholesales, doing some things, but it really ramped up because you were able to build our buy side of people. So when we got a deal, we could easily sell it. So I know you have a history of doing that. So you went through that whole thing. I also touched on the fact that when COVID hit, that was kind of the wholesale thing. We were shutting down our office and trying to get out of that. Both of us were looking for other things to work on. What was your transition after that? You and I were working on a few things. We still have some projects that we're working on, but specifically how you got into the storage side of things.
Like a lot of people, COVID allowed for a lot of thinking time. There was some downtime in there where you weren't just hustling because there wasn't a lot to hustle on. I think a lot of people did that, including myself. And so it was, I don't know, later in 2020, I would say, that I started listening to, I don't even know, I can't even remember now how I came across it, but I came across this guy, AJ Osborne. He puts on the podcast. I've got his book right here. I listened. Yeah. He was instrumental, really, because he had already had a pretty big podcast library on starting in self-storage. And so what had happened is, I started listening to him religiously. I was just like hammering many hours a week on his podcast. I remember I had a deal in Austin. A buddy of mine was buying a house, moving back from California. And this was early 2021. He bought it sight unseen. So I was up there doing, with the inspector, just going back and forth probably 4 times during that transaction, taking all these pictures, videos. And I used that time to listen to many hours of podcasts because it was up in whatever is Lakeway, it was not close. And so that was like, I was just literally getting ingrained in the beauty of that asset class. And so that's really what that tipped the scales. And then, I don't know, early part of 2021, I attended this virtual conference. And it was pretty cool. The technology had come so far that you could be like almost in a conference, like you go to the convention center. And it was all about self-storage. And so all these people that I'm still connected to today were speakers in that 2-day conference. And that was instrumental, again, in leveling up and giving me. So now I'm in this mastermind group. The guy who runs that was one of the speakers. And, I'm still with them today. And so that's kind of how that transition happened. And I just realized the power, well, you and I had talked about it many times, right? A lot of people start in doing one thing in real estate. And then a lot of it comes down to, are you hunting for your next deal every single time? Or are you going to buy an asset that can spin off like almost money passively and money that you're not having to chase every single time? Right. And so it's really hard. One of the biggest problems I had back when I was, a loan officer back in the day, and one thing that kind of pushed me, besides just the kind of the market crash, but I was constantly having these ups and downs, and I think, realtors, anybody in real estate can relate to having a huge month. You make 30 grand one month and then you make 4 the next. And you're like, how do I budget? How do I plan for this? How do I know what I can buy, And so really I socked away a lot of that loan officer years money and used that to buy houses, buy my flip properties, put money away into my 401k because I could never really figure out, how much I could spend. And so I was always pretty tight with it. But anyway, that still goes to when I left my corporate job again and got back into real estate. You'd have these huge months. It's just ebbs and flows so much. And so that's when COVID hit. You're like, we were both thinking like, we need to buy something that, I know I want to be in real estate. I don't want to get out of real estate. This is where it's at for many reasons. But how do we get out of the churn of constantly having to find that next deal to make another buck, So
yeah, I wanted to say something about that earlier when you talked about that first wholesale deal you did. I mean, it was like, great. Yeah, that's great. You did $6,000 on a deal, but then if you stop, no more, Yeah. And it's the same thing with commission. So a lot of the thing is trying to get agents to understand, take some of that commission, the active income that you're earning, and put it into income producing property like storage facilities or like multifamily investments so that you're earning passive income. And so over time, you can slowly build up the money that is going to replace all of that active income that you're earning. And if you're not doing that, then it's just like what you were talking about. You never really know what your budget's going to be like. You are going to have to hustle and churn and find the next deal, or you're just not going to eat, right? One thing that I say, I probably have said it every time I've talked to people recently, is just like when I got into it back in, 2009, I think I bought first houses here in San Antonio. And it was the whole reason I got into real estate and got my license and did all of that was to own the asset and to actually own property. And I had this goal in my mind after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad to, have a certain amount of money coming in every month in order to offset all of my expenses so that I'd be retired, right? I thought in my mind that was going to be done when I was 30. But then I went on this like circuitous route and just wandering in the desert of just looking or flipping deals, flipping houses, chasing the next thing that was coming up, wholesale and that sort of thing. So it's very similar on the commission side. If you're just constantly doing commission work and you're not building up any rentals or passive income by investing in deals, the stress, it's always there. Anyway.
You could set a minimal goal of just buying one rental house a year for 10 years and you'd be pretty set, and you'd have something to fall back on.
Yeah.
But if you're not even doing that, almost the thing with me and why I really like storage just specifically is I don't like people. Well, I say that in jest because I just don't like, I've had rental houses, I've had owner finance properties, so have you, and it's not for me. Really, it's not. That's why also, multifamily, I was having dinner with a guy last night that was, he's a big multifamily investor and we were trading stories, but he bought this Class C facility at the beginning, right before COVID hit, and then he got stuck. He wasn't able to churn out any of these bad tenants and fix the property up and increase the value. And
was it a facility, meaning storage, or was it
No, I mean, it was community? A multifamily. Yeah, community. It was a Class C apartment complex, like 200 units. And he couldn't evict anybody. People stopped paying. Now, I think a lot of that was the exception. I don't think that was the norm. I think a lot of people still got their rents through most of COVID. But if you got a bad apple property already and the bad apples got to stay, then he said it was tough. That's why I like the storage.
You can speak to that if you want to. On the eviction policy, I think you have 30 days, right? You guys have a much different setup than you do in multifamily.
You still have a process you got to follow, but it's, it's way easier. I'll just say this. It's easier to get rid of people's stuff than the people, right? And if you're going to put somebody out on the street or their old dresser, one's a lot easier than the other. I'll just say that.
This show is sponsored by Ridgeline Investment Group. Ridgeline has a track record of transacting more than $53 million in assets throughout Texas. Ridgeline is currently looking to acquire 100 to 200 unit Class B multifamily communities between 5 and 20 million in San Antonio, Temple, Waco, Tyler, and other secondary markets in Texas. To learn more about Ridgeline Investment Group, visit www.ridgelineig.com. Toilets and what's the other word? Toilets and
tenants.
Right. Tenants and toilets.
And toilets.
Toilets. That's right. Let's transition a little bit. We kind of talked about, your background, how you got to where you are now. And so now you have storage facility. I think you've traded one or two of them in some other form or fashion, or a number of them. What are you seeing in today's market? And it can be with any asset class you're familiar with, single family, multifamily, storage, whatever it is, whatever you want to talk about. But what are you seeing in the market today?
Single family, I'm seeing a lot of stuff I haven't seen in many years. It's weird. The last time I saw price reductions, seller concessions, realtor bonus, agent bonuses on properties. I mean, greater than 30 days on the market, all those things I have not seen in a long time. And that is all. You're seeing multiple emails, blasts about certain houses that are just sitting. And the neighbor right across the street from me, I don't know why he decided to put his house on the market, the highest end, and I think there's still a market for updated houses or houses with pools. Those are still in high demand because people value those things a lot, and you'll still get probably multiple offers on those, even at the interest rate, scenario we're at today. But everything else, if you just got a run-of-the-mill house, you might have to be priced right. I still think the market under probably 275, probably still doable, because it's more entry level houses. But I think even I was talking to one of the top agents in town, he sells nothing but 1 to 2 million and way higher. A lot of those buyers are ultra wealthy folks that just buy cash anyway. And so they're less affected as well. So his market's still going pretty well. Yeah. But I think it's that 300, a million price point that can vary greatly on affordability with a 2 to 3% interest rate spike. So
yeah, one thing that we're seeing in the multifamily space is that jump is keeping people in the renter pool longer. And so the rents on the multifamily are able to be pushed a little bit higher. And so NOI, net operating income, is still increasing on a rent growth basis because
the cap rates go higher on a lot of these deals.
They are. And I'm getting more callbacks. I'm getting more on the multifamily space. You're getting more people trying to push a property multiple times, just like you said. Whereas in the past, you're throwing offers out that are money hard day one and no inspection period, close in 30 days. That's changing. Let's see.
I think it's similar on the commercial side, what we're seeing. Again, one of the more positive things about self-storage specifically is, you look back over the last 4 cycles of GDP decline, of major dips, I guess. And you look at the storage occupancy rates and they're still 90+% across all of that time. And so generally speaking, I hear a lot of folks in the industry talk about it being pretty resistant to any type of recession. So
sure. My question would be, and you may or may not know this, but what was the inventory like and what was the square footage available of space in those compared to what it is now? Because it seems like in the last 5 years or something, storage has just become such popular asset class that it's driven a lot of demand for development and new growth. So it has, I don't know the answer to this, but I would want to look at that as a metric, I guess, see if there's going to be a fall off in rented space. But one thing that I've always noticed about storage space is that grandma's got her couch in that storage facility for 20 years paying on it. And then it's
insane,
it's an old
honestly,
dusty couch with rats in it. It's like, what? So, all right, well, let's see. A lot of this, right? The background, we didn't really touch on why you got into real estate in the first place, what drew you to it. So when you came out, obviously you had the history of the mortgage broker background. You had bought a few places and that sort of thing. But as an asset class, do you invest in other things, or you have money in the stock market, or are you like, real estate's my number one deal and it's because of X, Y, and Z? Like, why real estate?
The last time I had any real money in the stock market was probably 2014. I put bigger amount on one stock than I ever thought I would, and I had always dabbled and bought, little things here and there. And in hindsight, had I not sold a lot of those little things, it would have been great to still have today. Facebook, Visa, I own these companies and they've done pretty darn well, Apple a long time ago. But the biggest one, I put a lot of money onto Amazon and it basically quadrupled. And so that allowed me to have money to buy, some properties that you and I bought came from that money. I sold that stock and I pretty much sold it at the top and it's gone whatever since. But you basically taught me, I've invested in some dumb stuff and you've had the opportunity to invest in the same things and they're non-real estate. And you're like, yeah, I know real estate, so I'm going to do what I know. And Warren Buffett has said that too. And that's why I bought Amazon when I did, because it's just one of those things. It's like, buy what you know. And I believed in Amazon. I didn't look at all the fundamentals and the PE and all that stuff. I was just like, I know this company. I feel strongly about it. They've got their hands in like a billion things and I feel like they're going to succeed. And so that's what I did. And the same thing goes for real estate. Like once you start knowing real estate and you know the power of it, you really don't need to invest in a lot else. I was talking to some guys yesterday about the exact same thing. And we were, one guy had been coming into money. He sold a couple of his facilities and he's like, I don't know, man, my financial advisor wants me to put money in the stocks and do this. And I'm like, yeah, he wants all those fees, man. So anyway, that's the others of us talking with him gave him a lashing, just like
talking to,
put some in there. All of us have kind of played around with Bitcoin and tried to buy NFTs and do stuff. I don't know that world. So to me, it's just throwing money away, honestly.
You talked me into buying an NFT.
Yeah. Now we still own them.
Yeah. Hodl. Yeah.
We're going to hold them forever because they're probably not worth anything.
No,
so anyway, that's a long answer to your question, but
but it's on point though. And you said something that jogged my memory on something I wanted to talk to you about, but it's basically buying something that is producing income, right? A stock doesn't produce income. It doesn't give you, unless it's
a dividend stock would.
Sure. Yeah. So again, if you're buying a dividend stock, great. That's something that is, but you have to pay the tax on that when you sell it, right? Like could you 1031 a stock?
The only way I know is to invest in an opportunity zone. I don't think you could 1031. I'm not a tax professional or anything like that, but I know for a fact you can take those and put them into an opportunity zone fund.
Yeah. But I guess the point is real estate provides income over time, appreciates over time. And it's like commercial real estate. It's like buying a business and operating a business. Storage facilities are like a business. And so my thoughts are always invest in a business or invest in real estate and get some cash along the way. So gone through a number of things and I want to ask you a couple of questions. Let me see. Tell me about your first storage facility that you bought. Give me the details on however much you want to share, right? But like how that came about and then what gave you the confidence to actually go and take it down.
Being part of a mastermind group and having guys that have done it before you, that was huge. Just different tools, an underwriting spreadsheet that works, that's kind of easy to use, that makes sense. Little tools like that. And then how to value and underwrite a storage facility, just building on that, all that knowledge. That's what really kind of gave me the confidence. It wasn't the entirety of last year, but 2021 was really just like education a lot. And so I was doing some regular transactions, real estate transactions, agent work, wholesaled a couple houses. I don't think I flipped a house last year, but I wholesaled a number. I did some consulting work, just to kind of pay the bills and stuff. But at the same time, my main focus was on education. And so then it got to a point where, not that I knew everything, but you have to execute. You have to do something. You can't just, I tell guys this all the time who are just starting out, like, you got to buy one. Just do it. You're probably not going to lose money if you do some of the steps here, trying to value it. But you may not buy a 10 cap property like I did. You'll just have to find something that worked, get in there, do the operations. So that was where my mindset shifted. It was like, I'm going to find one and I'm going to buy it and I'm going to make it work. So that's what it was. It was like my mind shift shifted from all this education to
execution.
No more dreaming, execute and go forward. And so that was it. The way I found it, I just hitting the phones. I basically do Google driving for dollars and look around for storage facilities that, look like they're mom and pop owned. I'm not looking for these big REIT properties. I'm looking in small towns across America, really, is what I'm looking for. And so I would figure out their phone numbers. A lot of times, if you're talking directly to an older owner or something, he's the one picking up the phone. They don't have managers, can't afford it. And so that's who I was talking to all the time, just calling owners constantly and finding out if they're ready to sell. And so this one guy, it was literally a golden goose because of the cap rate that he was willing to sell it at, the condition the facility was in. It was completely full. I mean, I got really lucky, and he was motivated seller. Like, I kind of hit all the points, right?
Yeah.
Which is very rare, because I've called hundreds, if not maybe thousands of facilities after that. And it's just not that easy. I think I contracted it September of last year. We didn't close until we had an appraisal delay, but we didn't close until the end of January. And so I've only owned it, 8 months now, something like that. And so
the argument would be made that it was, I don't know, every time we do any kind of sales or any kind of metrics, when you're looking at your stuff, it's like, how many do you have to call in order to get a deal? And like, you hit it early and now you got to slog through there. It's 1,000 calls, gets you a deal. So you're close to getting your second one, I imagine. If you're third or... I
bought and sold another one already in between now and then. It just wasn't, it didn't fit my criteria, but it goes back to when we were wholesaling, like there's a butt for every seat. And so I wholesaled that one and, made some more money to buy other deals or pay for my life until I find another one. And so, there's ups and downs. I mean, I'd rather do a few deals a year than do 40 a month, honestly. Like my stress 100%. Level goes way down and I'm able to have more free time with the family, which is what this is all about. And so that's why I like doing what I do.
Awesome. So on that deal, did you brought on investors or you bought it yourself? How'd you operate that?
It was $450,000. I got a 75% LTV loan at about, it was like mid fours was the rate, but at that time, which was nice. 25-year AM. I think it's a 5-year fixed rate. And so the terms were great, but I needed 25% down plus some working capital and a little bit of CapEx. So all in, I needed like 120 grand, something like that. And
so you
get all these numbers. I look at so many deals. I brought on 3 different investors, and when you run through the numbers, a lot of times you don't have to give away the farm. If it's a solid return for your investors, you can model it that way. And so I modeled it to, it's a pretty high IRR is what they're, looking at, an annual return. And so they all said, yeah, let's do it. And so it took me a minute on that property to get all my bookkeeping lined up and everything, all books right. And so we finally did that last month, and I was able to stroke my first Q1 and Q2, distributions to them. And so they all got, I do a write-up. I just keep a log essentially of what I've been doing on the property and, making operational improvements, doing a few things, where we're at on, what the P&L looks like. And I did a thing comparison to what it was to what I showed them before they invested, and where we're at now and how expenses are lower, NOI's higher, revenues right on track. And then I've had multiple meetings with brokers, and I'm basically at my 3-year pro forma number right now on
8 months.
If I wanted to exit it. in 8 months in.
Nice.
So now I'm like, do I sell, and 1031 that money into a bigger property, or just keep adding on to the portfolio essentially? So
that's a good spot to be in though. So congrats on that. Watching you do that and make that transition from the single family into that was inspiring. It's awesome to see.
I like it. So, I mean, I'll just tell you, for people that are interested in storage, I'm basically looking for value add play properties, something that somebody doesn't have a website. They don't have any automation. They may still have an employee there at the facility, which is an expense that I'll cut out day one. So I can immediately cut out 30, 40, 50 grand if somebody's got that as one of their expenses. So yeah, we basically automate the facility so that someone can go, we create a website, they can start paying by credit card. So I think the prior owner had 0 people paying by credit card. He was doing everything by paper. He was stuffing envelopes with invoices every single month. I mean, his postage bill every year, was a pretty good nut. I immediately increase
the value of the property by $45,000 just by cutting out my postage.
Right. But so anyway, those are the things. You just you're making the facility better, raising the rates up to market rate. And it's the same really across almost all commercial asset classes, what you're trying to do. You're trying to find something that's undervalued, fix it up, make it better, raise the rates, increase the NOI, which increases the value, the power of raising NOI and then having like a compressed cap rate market like we had the last couple of years, it's insane. The amount of value creation that happens on commercial.
Exponential growth. And I go into a bunch of different videos on that, on what NOI is. So if you're hearing this for the first time, what NOI, net operating income, check out some of the videos that we've got going. I can put some links in the show notes. But yeah, solid information. Just even walking through an actual deal that you've done, it's also very helpful and beneficial for people to see and understand how that came about. Some nuggets that you gave in the how-to section, some of your secrets and what you do. Google, what did you call it? Google bush buys?
What is that?
Google bush buy. I don't know. You're looking for bushy property, like they haven't mowed the yard or something. That's the...
Oh, well, I mean, honestly, if you drive by one and it looks like crap, call me and I'll figure out how to get it. And that's kind of what we're looking at. I made an offer on this. I was looking at portfolio in Oklahoma this week and wanted to make an offer on it. It took me a couple of days. I was underwriting it, and this guy's built a lot of storage in these small towns. He's the only dude in town. There may be 500 people, but they pass through this town to get through a bigger town from all these smaller towns. And so he's like, I'm completely full. And it's 35,000 square feet of storage. And I'm like, okay, I'm kind of intrigued. It's worth it to me to contract it and to fly up there, go meet with him. Some of his properties are so new. He just built all this stuff and he's already full. So that tells me there's some demand coming from somewhere. And it's worth it for me to explore because it's a decent enough cap rate, a decent enough price per foot that I'm like, all right, I'm intrigued. Let's contract it, see if I can make it happen. In the meantime, I'm doing some research around these little towns. I found this like 16 unit boat storage facility, one of the old rickety ones, but I mean, it looks like in decent shape enough. It's actually listed for 100 grand. I offered him 40. And I'm like, if I could pick that up, these different things, you just see them. They're just find them. Yeah. And so when you open your eyes to these things, you just start seeing, I mean, I see storage everywhere. Like it's crazy. I'm flying into DC the other day. I'm looking down. I'm like, oh, there's some right there. It's just crazy.
Once you tell people how they can get in touch with you, what's the best way? And I can provide links in the show notes as well. But I don't know if you have number, if you have anything. Actually, hang on. Before we do that, we're going to hit some rapid fire real fast. What is your favorite pastime that's not related to business? I think I have an idea, but
I could throw you a curveball. No, I'm just kidding. It's golf. I play golf. Yeah. I feel like it's about to change to being a baseball coach because of how much time and energy that's going to be taking because we're about to start this fall season. Tonight's our first practice. So anyway, my kid also is, great to hang out with. And so he's one of my pastimes.
I know, man. Reese is awesome. Great spending time with him when you guys were gone this past week. I mentioned that briefly, but okay. So on that point, what's the best thing or memory that's happened to you or your family in the past 60 days?
This is an easy one. We went to Mexico for a few weeks. We started this tradition last year when Reese was 5, he's 6 now. And we took a month last year and spent it in Costa Rica. And without having, my wife, she does remote work and I can work from anywhere, really. There's a guy doing what I do in self-storage. He lives in Colombia and he's very successful at it. And he owns probably 6 facilities, runs everything from Colombia. It's nuts. And so the last 60 days, we went to the Baja Peninsula, rented a house in Mexico. There was a golf course nearby, so I got to go play golf a bunch. We had the beach every day. We were in this kind of community of a bunch of American expats in a pretty decent house. And I worked. That's why I do this, to be able to go and do stuff like that and not be pressured to get back and have a boss telling me, where have you been? So that's what it is.
Name one or two people who have been most influential in the way you think or influential to your success.
Well, you're one of them because you've been dedicated in real estate and focused on that and unwavering. That's one.
That's nice. Did not expect to make your list, but I appreciate it.
And really, Mike Wagner, the guy who started the Storage Rebellion, the group that I'm with, I'd recommend it to anybody that's interested in learning. There's stuff in there for like the basic level. And then I'm in the higher group now with a bunch of really smart people and guys and girls just like us. Nothing more than to escape kind of the rat race and have this financial freedom and freedom to hang out with their families. And so Mike is a really good guy. And even just, I could rattle off probably 10 other guys and a couple girls in the Storage Rebellion that have been really influential in the last year and a half that I've been a part with them.
How can people get in touch with you? It's the easiest way. Where do you want to send them?
I'm on Facebook, Realtor Ryan TX, Realtor Ryan TX at gmail.com. Kind of held on to those doing agent days. Yeah, those would be fine. Realtor Ryan TX at gmail.com. Yeah.
It's been awesome catching up with you.
Thanks for having me.
I know a lot about you, but I always learn something new. So hey.
Hopefully.
So anyway, yeah.
Didn't disappoint.
Good catching up, and we'll see you on the pickleball courts.
All right. Sounds good.
Later.
Thanks. All right. Bye.
Surprisingly, most of the agents we speak with got into real estate hoping to gain passive income and become work optional. However, only 1 in 5 ever start investing. Most are simply too afraid to start. Once you get educated by listening to this show, you'll be able to overcome that fear and become the 1 in 5 who are finding financial freedom. Don't miss a single episode. If you want to stay up to date, the best way is to make sure you're subscribed. So if you haven't done that, go ahead and do it now. And we'll catch you on the next episode.